Hello, this is Dr. Goodin with Educational Psychology. We'll be starting with an introduction. First, to me, I have a PhD in Educational Psychology, um, and this is a course that should just be a foundational level um, for educational content and theory, and basically the application of psychology to um, learning. Not strictly the classroom or schools, but any type of learning. Could be sport. Uh, so we'll take a look. Um, Basically, we think of psychology as something like what we see here, a Rorschach image, um, which is uh, which is a test that psychologists use to sort of get at unconscious motivations and desires. Um, In this case, we're going to be doing less of that. We're going to be studying more about students, and I'm going to say students. Feel free to apply that term generally. Any learner of any sort, um, trainee, um, their motivation, um, their performance, and my two areas of emphasis were motivation and performance, with emotion being the third. Um, so we are going to use the word education often, but you can use the word training as well. We want to think about how the two interact. How can psychology be applied to the classroom? Not in order to help their mental health, but in order to help give them the optimal learning outcome and the optimal performance outcome. Often we don't see, even though a student um, knows the information, they may not be able to perform or or show that they know the information on an exam or some sort of performance evaluation. Um, so the relevance of Rorschach is a psychological instrument, as I said. And one thing that's really important to note as you are beginning this course, especially if you plan to teach in a school system or train people, we notice what is relevant to us. And so as you begin this course, think about how this class might be relevant to you without establishing those areas of relevance. You are going to be less motivated. As instructors, it is our goal and duty to find the areas of relevance to our students for the information, to make the information relevant as much as possible. Um, so take a few moments if you want, pause the video, and think about how this class might be relevant to you. I will tell you a little bit about how I try to set the class up. This class is motivationally driven off of what's called the ARCS model, ARCS, ARCS model. And I studied with the creator of the ARCS model. Um, it starts with gaining and maintaining attention. We want to supply curiosity. We want to get your curiosity going as a student, to create a mystery, um, to bring in intrigue. We want to establish that relevance that I spoke of. Um, in relevance, there are two ways that we can do that. We can connect the information that we're about to teach you to what you already know so that it is obviously relevant. Here's the next step in the process. Here's what you've already learned. Here's the next step. The other way of providing autonomy is to make it, well, this is about you or someone like you. This is relevant to football or something that you enjoy. Um, with When we give students autonomy, That means freedom to make the information their own to some degree, and to be creative about how they do a project. And do a project, it has to fit within these certain parameters, but it can be about something you enjoy. By giving them that autonomy, we allow them to make the information relevant to themselves. Thirdly, um, we use confidence. Um, and this is not something we can necessarily give to the students, but we can encourage it. We can scaffold their process, have them do a little bit, and show them that, hey, you succeeded at that. Let's move on to the next step, which is just a little bit harder. As students are performing, we can give them feedback and say, you're on the right track, fix this, fix that, good job here, try working a little harder in this other area. And through that, we give them confidence that they are on the right track, that they know what is expected of them. And um, in so doing, they they will not feel lost or alone in the classroom. Finally, satisfaction. Um, Satisfaction is sort of a strange term, but it has to do with the idea of one's connection to the future. We want to make sure that the class goes beyond the class. And what I mean by that is whatever we teach in the classroom, we want to make sure the students understand that this information will be useful to you after the course ends, as you are a teacher, as you are a learner, as you go out there and counsel people, as you become a chemical engineer. Um, so we want to always connect the information we have to possible future usages and say 5 years from now, how could you use this information? These are the take-home messages. Sometimes the most important thing is connecting the information we're using um, and teaching in the classroom to long-term goals of the students and to the educational process and sometimes to the careers that students may choose. This is an online class currently that I'm focusing on with this lecture series. Um, so you are going to have a lot of autonomy. You get to choose when to read the syllabus. I suggest right now. You will get to choose when to watch these videos. You get to choose when to pause and take a break and use the restroom. You need to probably do that about every 10 to 15 minutes. Take a break, reset your brain, reset your focus. Um, don't play around too much. I encourage you when you are listening to these lectures, watching the slides, um, put away your distractions, turn your phone off, set it to the side and turn it over. Um, get rid of all distractions, focus on the content, listen to it, move through it with full focus, um, and then right after, jot down a few notes and then move on. Okay, but do take breaks. You will have a lot of autonomy in this class, which means responsibility. I'm not going to be telling you, apart from the syllabus, I'm not going to be reminding you when things are due. Um, so you will be self-regulating. Um, so when we start to think about educational psychology, we think about the factors that affect learning and how psychology may um, include some of the factors that affect learning. This would be a good time for you to pause, jot down at least 10 factors that you feel can make or break a learning experience. Here's some of the ones I've seen in the past, um, and I'm not going to go over these in depth, but think about the, the the style of teacher that you have, even the gender of the teacher, the culture of the teacher, culture of the student. So think about the teacher, the student, the environment, the classmates. There's so much that goes into it Of course, I study factors that influence learning. That is my expertise in this domain, and we'll be talking a lot about these things. You are welcome to contact me by email with any questions. At times, I may set up a discussion board where we can discuss different issues about educational psychology, what influences learning or training. Um, so our foci in this class, which is the plural of focus, um, one of my main emphases is motivation. We want to know what drives a person. Um, we're going to look at self, social, and moral development. We're going to look at behavioral views of learning, cognitive views of learning, constructivist views of learning. We may touch on ULM in the ARCS models. I've just spoken about the ARCS model. But the ARCS model is really good for setting up your own evaluation of the class, understanding what is needed in terms of your audience. How attentive will they be? How can you gain and maintain their attention? How can you make things relevant to them? You need to know your audience to do that. How can you establish confidence so that they know that they're on the right track with their learning, and so that they know when they get to the final exam that they will be able to pass that exam? And how can you connect the learning to their future? So take a deep breath and look at this question. What is good teaching? Is it an art or a science? Is it teacher-centered? Is it student-centered? Is it discovery, which would be constructivism? Is it the application of general theories or the invention of situation-specific practices, which would be more like behaviorism? Okay, so there are different ways to look at teaching and what quality teaching is. Let's first look at the qualities of a good teacher. Think about how these qualities match up with educational psychological concepts. Again, you'll want to pause and reflect on what the qualities of a good teacher have been in your own personal life. I know for myself, it's someone that realizes that I may not have all the information that they have. I may not have a PhD in this course. I need them to start with the simple stuff and move from there and build my knowledge instead of assuming that I understand everything at their level already. Do teachers make a difference? For a while, researchers reported findings suggesting that wealth and social status not teaching were the major factors determining who learned in schools. And in fact, wealth and social status, or what we call socioeconomic status, SES, is a major factor in how well people learn. What makes an effective teacher? Well, first we could look at teacher-student relationships. The association between the quality of early teacher-child relationships and later school performance can be both strong and persistent. That's what we've seen. Students with significant behavior problems in early years are less likely to have problems later in school if their teachers are sensitive to their needs and provide frequent and consistent feedback. So teachers do matter, okay, especially in the early years. How about preparing teachers and the quality of teachers? Students who have problems seem to benefit the most from good teaching. If you haven't paused the video, now's a good time to take a 10-minute break. I'm not going to tell you every time, but just keep that in mind. Set a alarm on your watch and just take a break. The role of educational psychology. Educational psychology encompasses principles and theories related to human learning and motivation, child and adolescent development, individual and group differences, psychological assessment, and topics related to classroom practice. Okay, So a principle is a key idea, whereas a theory is a collection of key ideas. Okay, I want you to think about those things. And we use theories to say this explains how this is working. This explains why students in this area are learning well. And as we develop theories, we do try to support them with research, with empirical research normally. Educational psychology is commonly referred to as the study of learning and teaching. And so I want you to understand that while you may think of psychologists normally as a therapist, most psychologists are not actually therapists. There are many realms of psychology that do not include therapy or counseling or mental disease at all. As an educational psychologist, I spent 8 years doing research. So it's very important that you understand. I got a master's and an educational specialist degree in counseling. My first 2 years was a master's degree. But then I switched into a different realm of psychology to where we did research on cognition, which is thinking, and learning. So with my emphases, again, being motivation, performance, and emotion. So as we look at the study of learning and teaching, we can study different things like the storage and retrieval of information, how students can apply knowledge, what are different motivations, what are needs. So what is a theory? Remember, principles are the what of human behavior. They describe specific factors that influence a student's learning, development, and behavior. These are the obvious things. Theories are the why these principles work. They describe possible underlying, unobservable mechanisms that regulate human learning, development, and behavior. Sometimes these are less obvious. So why are these important? And why should we understand research? Well, they give us a guideline, an organizational tool to understand not just what we're doing as teachers, as trainers, as instructors, but to understand the students, to understand the environment in which we work, to understand the whole system of education and training, and how it can be improved. And by studying it, we do say, this is important. This is worth my time to understand why this works. And that's something that teachers, especially in the K through 12 system, and even at my level in academia, we don't always get that time spent where researchers take the time to look at what is truly working, how can we help. Instead, we often give the same test over and over again. We do not account for individual differences in students and teachers, circumstances, emotional issues, motivations. So, as we began, today we covered Chapter 1, Teaching and Learning. How did this information relate to what your other classes have taught you? It's important that you think about, especially if you're in the educational field, how this information is the same as everything you've heard before, how it may have added a few things, pieces of information, jot those down especially, and how this information may help you in your future careers and goals. Again, we're satisfying confidence and satisfaction here. Okay? All right. Dr. Joel Goodin, I'll be speaking to you next about needs and motivation.